Hello, my name is Mariana Danilovic. I'm the founder of Infium, and we gather here in Zoom sessions in the virtual Infium salons every other Wednesday to showcase the best of investors, heads of innovation of Fortune 500 companies, and ventures presented by CEOs and founders of those ventures in the Web3, metaverse, generative AI, and other disruptive tech spaces. And we're going to go to Ample with founder and CEO Kenny Jones. Hello, Kenny.
Hey, how's it going, Mariana? Thank you so much for the invite and being here. Appreciate it. Happy to pitch. We are Ample. I am the founder and CEO, and my name is Kenny Jones again, just in case anybody didn't get that. But we are tokenizing and decentralizing the $2 trillion global media and distribution market. I will get into my background a little bit later on our team page, but I worked in media and entertainment for the last 10 to 15 years, mostly closer to 15 actually, for National Geographic, Discovery Channel, etc. Started learning about blockchain in 2019 and really kind of started seeing the opportunities that could present itself from, NFTs and tokenizing intellectual property. So we are focused on tokenizing intellectual property, and we're building the premier multi-chain Web3 distribution, streaming, and financing rails powered by that tokenization of intellectual property for films, shows, and music. So, imagine if you were watching Netflix, listening to Spotify, and you could buy into that project, that artist, that song. You can royalties, residuals, have token gated access, ticket management, all kinds of great stuff. We'll get into more of the functionalities, but essentially we make the tokenized intellectual property ownership and content distribution fun and easy. We, we'll have basically the infrastructure and the rails that people could launch multi-chain networks, labels, channels. So a big example of this would be a big studio like Pixar. Why do they need a Netflix? Why do they need an Amazon? Why do they need a distribution deal with streaming entities when they could just do it themselves? So basically, fans and viewers can also share the success of creators' IP. Depending on their geographical location, they can have access to actual ownership of that intellectual property and exchange that on open marketplaces in the form of an NFT, or they could have rights to the royalties, the residuals, token gated access, credits, roles, all kinds of great stuff. And then eventually you get into licensing and digital rights management as well. So this saves time and money by cutting out middlemen, lawyers, agencies, network gatekeepers. And that's a whole other thing that we don't have time to go into, but it's a very real thing. And then it creates opportunities for crowdfunding, permissionless, permissionless distribution, and gives creator economies and creators the ability to earn across networks and partner platforms. So, and then again, like I mentioned, tokenized intellectual property, licensing, and rights management. So all from one single place, they can distribute to multiple marketplaces and multiple streaming platforms. And obviously manage all the ownership and distribution of that ownership. So again, a fun and engaging user experience. We're essentially a launch pad for creator projects. And I won't get too much into all of this just to save you guys on time, but basically creators can upload their content. They have to follow tech specs. The reason we make them follow tech specs is so that they can also engage with Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu, because we believe that there should be like a bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. So we want to help with that. And then general users just stream content the same way that they normally would. They can decide to pay per view or pay a subscription. And then the exchange is essentially that exchange of actual IP, access, roles, again, whatever the creators, labels, studios actually want to sell on our marketplace and sell on our platform. So we're kind of combining like that streaming experience with a marketplace. And again, the NFTs will also go to different marketplaces, so they can do that there as well, but they'll be able to exchange and engage all on the same platform. The growth and market size opportunity is pretty big. We have the initial TAM estimate, which this isn't necessarily global, but It's about 617 billion a year. The total NFT market cap grew. Obviously, we know what kind of market we're in now, but by 2030, it's looking like it could be like a $16 trillion opportunity. The problems that we understand, again, this is all just from years of experience. We're fixing payments. Payments are low, slow. Sometimes it can take up to 6 months to get paid for your royalties. And obviously, we all know that payments are low. This, again, perfect story about music and film, both two big things. A lawsuit for 10 million. The guy from Daft Punk's One More Time is still homeless, and he can't even track his royalties. So that gives you an example of just two kind of extreme examples about of the problems we're fixing. IP ownership. So essentially retainment is pretty much non-existent. Most of the time, you're always selling all of your ownership. Even if you were able to keep a small percentage, that would be a legacy thing that you could have for the rest of your life and another source of income. So enforcement and management options aren't really affordable. You need lawyers. And with, tokenizing that intellectual property, now we have a immutable ledger of all engagement with that intellectual property. Content distribution, there's always the gatekeeping of network access, no markets for partial ownership, and then the inability to easily license or collaborate on commercial uses. Once you kind of tokenize, again, the licensing, the ownership, and everything around the intellectual property, the possibilities of engagement with that and transfer of that are pretty fast. And then you create multiple revenue streams, which we'll get into in a second. And then financing, obviously, there's always a challenge and lack of alternative methods and opportunities, which we're fixing. So this is just essentially some of the stuff that we're creating that our users are asking for. NFT IP options. This addresses a lot of the problems. There's actually going to be probably a huge explosion of AI generated content. And we think a tokenized substrate is the way to sort of move forward, kind of connecting the amount of creativity that's going to exist with the tokenized proof of authentication and exchange and engagement methods with that content. There'll also be smart contract efficiency. This just means higher, faster payouts, on-chain verifiable engagement analytics, a GUI for contracts, as well as the legal creation, and then easy access licensing and collab tools, creator distribution tools, and eventually we'll have commercial support where white label launchpad for productions and networks, as well as multi-chain distribution for our platform and other partner platforms. So a couple more things there, but essentially this is the main way that we work. We're really supporting circular economies and connecting those ecosystems. So we basically connect the creators, owner distributors, the Web3 partners and brand platforms, streaming audiences, collectors, fans, and then their communities and networks. And then we have an Ample DAO that is essentially a decentralized production company that will manage a lot of the production methods and keep on-chain engagement transparent and secure. So essentially, like what we believe is that the ownership and distributed and decentralized ownership of content will ultimately create flywheel effects because two problems are marketing and fundraising. And when people have a vested interest, we'll think they will move a little bit faster and kind of spread the message of their project and their communities. Multiple revenue streams. Again, we're a high volume, low transaction fee kind of business model. And basically you can see a bunch of the fees here. I'm not going to go too far into that just to kind of save some time. And then the partners and projected users and revenue. So we currently have about 25. This is a little bit older. So we have about 25 total partners. But these have about 2.7 million followers, 416 million streams in about 50 plus countries. Based on our recent survey of about 3,000 people, we have about we think that, within year one, we can get to about 500K users with $100 average spend. And again, that's based on data that we pulled from our most recent survey. Our go-to-market strategy is pretty straightforward. We're going to essentially compound all of the networks that we already have with our launch partners. And because they're essentially established launch partners, we'll bring in those creators, and continue to compound their communities, not just for our project, but for their projects as well. And then obviously we'll keep growing distribution partnerships and ecosystem partnerships. And then we have social channels, video content, SEO, that kind of normal stuff, and then PR, news campaigns, events, etc. Then we have distribution plus content sourcing. So essentially the way that Ample works is there's an Ample DAO, and that's the token-based ecosystem that works for governance, residuals from the platform, and basically management of all the original content and the pitch processes and the fundraising processes that happen for the platform. And then Ample, the platform, is actually more of a SaaS-based system for B2B and B2C business. And I can get more into that later, but again, I'm just trying to be smart on time. Here's our updated roadmap. I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole because that's on our site and on our deck. But eventually, we are an early stage project looking now for basically private seed funding, pre-seed funding. We're about to launch our alpha from our second iteration of our V2. We're on testnet. So, and have all of our creators ready to launch, and we have a whole marketing campaign that's about to happen. So the team, me, I've worked for major networks again, Nat Geo, Discovery, MTV. I've built broadcast standard operating procedures, delivered hundreds of network content pieces. I've been an entrepreneur for my whole life with biz dev, project management, sales, marketing, real estate. Recently was selected as one of DC's top innovators. That was pretty cool. Sheldon is awesome. He's from Octopus Network, where they worked on all kinds of app chain stuff, which is essentially multi-chain on top of Near. Deepak has built a few different DeFi platforms and multi-chain, cross-chain exchange apps. Pratt is our kind of LA connect. He is super connected in Hollywood. And then we have Josh, who's our lawyer, who's done everything with NFT, IP, speaks all the time. Basically, yeah, he's really plugged into the whole NFT crypto IP. And then we have a couple really solid advisors. Major milestones, we've established our 25 launch partners. We received a Near Foundation grant, angel investment early on, but we are chain agnostic, just to make that clear. We also, and then with Boss, they actually support multi-chain. So we built our MVP and our first IP ownership contract. And we have our DAO token NFT ownership, distribution, and payment protocols in place. And then we just did our survey for ongoing PMF research. These are some of the clients that we've worked for, so some big names there, but we're all professionals from the space. And then this is our funding. We're currently raising a pre-seed round at 250K. You can see our token allocation. We have safe splits, token warrants, or TPAs available. And we have all of our entities in place to support this. And that's about it. If you want to get in touch with us, we're at ample.stream, or you can email me directly at kenny@ampleplatform.com. And I believe there is no Q&A, so thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Actually, I was going to ask you a few questions. This is awesome and obviously very needed. And I work with a bunch of companies. We accelerated a few with the BNB chain just a week ago that ended, that are in this space. What do you think is the critical path to getting adoption for this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we're viewing this similar to most network launches. I actually was at National Geographic when Netflix was considered a B-level platform, and people didn't take Netflix seriously at all, which is pretty funny to remember. But the way that Netflix essentially got in front of most people was not only their tech, right? So one, we have the tech advantage, but they're agile. They had the ability to pivot and work with whoever was ready. So right, you saw the beginning of a lot of really professional creators' careers because they didn't have access to the big television broadcasts where Netflix was making deals with them. So what we see is, well, why not start with younger creators and people that are newer and build up careers with the platform versus trying to go for the A-listers. So we think of it as like, it's the whole House of Cards thing. Like, when's the House of Cards project going to be found? And then once that's found, and then that happens Web3, and then people can see that they get paid more, they retain ownership, and there's just this lifelong benefit. I think that's going to be the real catalyst. But by the time that happens, and then by the time that happens, the bigger networks won't really be ready to catch up because they'll be entrenched in these big deals. But projects like mine hopefully will be ready to actually bridge that gap. And that's why we have tech specs and deliverables that will match with that as well. So I think it's going to be, you're going to have to see a few really big, successful, almost blockbuster case studies to get that mainstream adoption. And then once people know that they can actually be involved with that, I think that's going to become similar to kind of like the NFT social flex culturally that we're kind of seeing as well with NFTs and wallets and things like that.
So you still believe in tokenizing all of this? I mean, I do too. I'm just wondering.
Sure. Yeah, no, I believe in tokenizing it, but I think the concept or the paradigm shift is it's my, our head of partnership compares it to MP3s. Like we used to talk about MP3s early on in streaming, but now you don't call them MP3s, you just call them songs. So I think it's a paradigm shift. Like I don't think we'll say NFTs. We'll probably just know them as something else. So I think the tokenization is only the technology. I don't think it really helps much with user adoption.
So the technology will become transparent. And I've been advising this company called Numbers Protocol, and they basically use the gas fees on their layer 0 to track files, media files on chain. So they'll put video, audio, photo on chain and all of the licensing rights and metadata and IP rights, so that if you're a creator, you actually know where everything is. I think that would probably be a good partner for you because they're flat kind of technology company versus you capturing the vertical markets here with all your other partnerships. But basically the idea is that in this new world, owning your IP and knowing how to get paid from it and being in charge of that process is really kind of the reason for the creators to move over, right? That's kind of the point.
100%. Yeah, sovereignty over your intellectual property. Same with sovereignty over your money, your data, etc. Yeah.
I would say in the BNB chain and Infium Founders Academy, pretty much sovereignty over data was like the main overarching theme of the whole academy.
Sure.
Yeah, which is kind of where we are.